Coach, juice.
Well, couple things here, okay? We talked about it the other day. If you have juice, we put it to use. But also, if you're juiceless, you're useless, right? So we're working on maintaining that energy as we keep going out through camp, right? So guys that I thought brought it today on defense was Javen Robinson. You got a chance to see him really make a big pick in the red zone, and I think he's had one hell of a camp really to start it. And it's amazing. At breakfast, right, I targeted all of our outside receivers, and I said, I need some big-time plays. I said, I need a deep ball from each one of you. Donovan said, I'll give you two, and he delivered, right? So Donovan Ali, when he does big boy receivers, there's no way in a coup grade you can function without big-time, especially red zone threats on the outside. So we're working towards that consistency, but it was good to see those guys do a better job today in the explosive pass game.
Left guard, is it basically kind of down to Brock and Christian right now for that starting spot?
Yeah, it is. Once we get Make back, we'll find kind of the best rotation, but I think those two are kind of locked in. We're really having a hard evaluation on who's going to rise to the occasion.
Is there something that maybe one does better than the other, or how do you kind of evaluate each in terms of what they're doing well?
I think Brock is just really, really steady. He's a fundamental guy. He's going to do everything right. He knows his assignments. I mean, he's going to fight like a bulldog in there. And Christian, we're just fighting for that consistency, but I like his mentality. I think he's another guy that has matured and is going to give us an option in there. So, we're going to need both of them. This isn't going to be something where just five guys are going to be rolling out. So it is something whoever wins the job will be out there first, but that doesn't mean they'll be out there all the time.
Talked to Falili this summer, and, one thing he said is that, at first he was not particularly keen on playing O-line, and it was kind of a tough transition. But, you see him out here in the O-line drills, and he's really having a lot of success and seems to kind of develop a bit of a mean streak, a little bit of a nasty out there. I mean, how much do you like that out of a guy who, obviously had to go through a pretty tough transition to even start playing tackle?
He did what's best for the team, and he did what's best for him. And I think sometimes as a player, you see the moment. You don't see the future like we do as coaches. So I just really love Lili embracing it. And then just like you mentioned, his daily development is just keeping strides forward. And he has a mentality that he wants to be physical. He wants to attack, but he also wants to learn and get better, right? So I tell him, just cut it loose. Make a million mistakes. Coach McGuire is, on those guys for the details, and I think he's one of those guys that has really taken a step forward, but it starts with an attitude, and he's taking a positive one every day.
How kind of locked in is Shalyn Baker at that number 2 running back right now?
I don't even know who number 1 is. So let alone number 2. I think those guys need to come out here and prove it. They're all very different. So we'll be a guy by committee versus having one guy, and that's not a knock on Nakia. That's just a challenge to a lot of different guys got to be ready to play, and they all have uniquely different skill sets, so we're trying to be more multiple with the Javinsky and with the Nakia and Jalen be able to pick it up as we keep going, and then Katz and D-Payne are working their tails off. So it's going to be by committee, and so I don't think there is an established 1 or 2 or 3 right now.
I haven't asked specifically about Lincoln Victor yet, but I'm just wondering what you've seen from him in terms of developing or taking the reins of the leadership role a little bit more now.
Well, he does, and I think he has that special it. I think he really gets it, and hopefully when you guys get a chance to talk to him, he really verbalizes those things, and we need that leadership on offense, and not leading when times are great, not leading when we're scoring a bunch of touchdowns, leading when times are tough. And we're still looking for some of those voices, but Lincoln has been a really reliable one really for the last year and a half. So that's important, and we'll continue to lean into him as we go throughout the season.
You talked about getting more, the big boy plays from the outside receivers. Seems like Stribling had a few today as well. Just kind of Stribling and Ollie. What have you seen them kind of add to their game ahead of fall camp?
Well, Jamie always hits me with the GPS numbers, but Strib has taken his miles per hour from 19 to 23, non-padded. Okay, so that's a hell of a development for a 19-year-old kid. Strib's still 19. Right, so he's developing and maximizing his athletic ability. So I think you're going to see a different 88 on that field this year. So if we clean up his initial release phase, right, and allow him to get into some space, he's understanding how to be a receiver. And there's a lot of little details that go into that. Before he was just a catcher, right? And Donovan, since I've been here the last couple of years, has really changed his body. He's changed his mental attitude and his capacity, and I think he's really growing. So we need that on the outside. And, we're going to use him more than we have in the past, and I think that's an exciting thing for both of those guys.
Coach, the full pads come on here today. What's the difference between that first week of practice and the rest of the way here coming into the season?
Just the way we design it, I think there's always high upticks in periods, and then like tomorrow, we're going to be 18 periods in helmets, right? And it's going to be high intensity, low impact, right? So it's always designed to peak and valley and make sure our guys are maintaining their max velocities, right? And that's what all the catapult stuff does. So we manage their workloads to make sure they never govern themselves when they're out here, okay? They know one way when they're out here, and that is their best, period. Right, so full pads, is kind of that culmination of that acclimation period. I think we're peaking and where we need to be, and then tomorrow we'll hit the field with a little light work and a lot of mental stuff. Add some 2-minute in there, and start working through our process.
Do you notice the intensity rev up when you do put on those pads? The guys just want to hit each other a little more, maybe?
Well, that's football now. That's football. Every once in a while, you got to get nasty and get your hand in the dirt. And it isn't always easy. It's just hard work. And I think our guys are embracing that. And as long as we are mature competitors and we do it on our feet and iron sharpen iron every day, that's what you need to be a good competitive football team.
Coach, you just said it. Iron sharpens iron. You watch D-Lang and Shaw go against Deshaun and Renard and Donovan in practice. What has that kind of been like, the competitiveness between your secondary and your wide receivers, and how will that help grow your team further down the line?
Because here's what I love. For those 2 hours, those guys are competing their tails off, right? But the moment we blow that final horn, those guys are the first guys shaking it up, right? Because they know they need each other, right? And if someone, doesn't have a good day, the other guy's not getting better. So there's a challenge to that and a competitive nature that I think they really understand, and they need it. And all of those guys you mentioned want to be, championship type players and individual and people, right? So there's a mentality to wanting to be great that you need to understand before you're great. And I think that competitive nature is something that these guys are starting to really take steps forwards with.
And then first day in full pads is kind of your last first here before the regular season gets underway. I saw you out here hitting pads, playing a little DB here in the corner. Just how exciting was it for you to be out there today and see all the guys in full pads for the first time?
I love being out here, period. I love being with the guys. I can never just stand still. It's one of those things. I was playing DB and Zai almost knocked me on my tail. That was bad footwork. All right, I got to work on that. But I enjoy it, and I want these guys to see me on both sides and how much I'm invested in them. And sometimes it's just the little pep talks that I can get in between periods, but they know I want them to feel me and understand where we're at and how we can compete and bring some energy to the program too.
And then I guess over the next 3 weeks, what's one thing that maybe you're really trying to drive home for your team as you prepare for your first game?
Just the things we can control. And we talked about it today, and it was supposed to be 105 and hot and this and that, but there's no outside situation that can control our performance. We have it within us, within our group, within each individual, and they have to believe that. So I think that's an important part of it, just those guys understanding, what you tell yourself, you can achieve, right? So there's a mentality piece that we're really working on, and camp is amazing. Because you get these back-to-back days and you got to stack it up, and you really got to look that man in the mirror each and every day and be ready to play.
Coach, does it feel like when pads come on is kind of when the real scouting process for the offensive line begins? I just wonder how much you can really get a look at guys when they're just in helmets and not being able to go full bore.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. To me, the full pads adds a knee pad, right? So we got to be able to prepare and practice and everything that we do. But there's a mentality of full pads that makes it feel just a little bit more game-like, a little bit more real. And, hey, we're out here for a reason and a purpose. And those front guys especially, it's hard work, and I appreciate those guys. They don't get enough credit. They're working their tail off, and they have gotten better. So we'll continue to do that as we keep going through camp.
Saw you flip the old ball cap around while you were teaching those wideouts how to hit the tackling dummy. Is that a little alter ego, the old DC coming out, the old linebacker coach?
What it is the old 22-year-old coming out, right? I want to show these guys I still got it, right? So I can still, long stride, short stride, and take a pad down. But I love it. Coach Witt comes up and says, hey, I need you to coach the wide receivers tackling. I'm like, heck yeah, let's go. I can't just blow this whistle and walk around the whole day. So it feels good, and those guys embrace those periods and want to get better, so I love being a part of them.
Lastly, as pads come on, intensity ramps up, and we get closer to the start of the season, what is your role and your coaching staff's role in making sure these guys go full speed, high intensity, but it doesn't develop into skirmishes off the field, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just understanding sometimes those things are part of it, right? You get enough cougs on cougs, you're going to get some of that. But, we show it in team meetings, right? How to be mature competitors and how to do it the right way. And I'm a big believer, don't show them what not to do. Show them what to do and encourage and catch champions in the moment when they're doing it. But some of that stuff will happen. Excited to get to our first scrimmage on Saturday and really start to evaluate and grade some of these guys and some of these positions that we need to start separating on, because 6 of them are already done. We're getting close to it, and we're excited about where we're going.